I still remember the first day I felt our home turning colder. It did not happen suddenly. There were no raised voices, no broken dishes, and no one pointed a finger. It came slowly, like a shadow moving across the floor. At first, I thought it was nothing. Families change, people grow older. But inside my heart, I felt something shifting. Our family was once full of warmth. Evenings were special. We sat at the dining table, sharing whatever food we had. My husband would listen quietly, smiling when he liked a joke. My son and daughter would laugh at each other's stories. I would watch them with pride in my eyes. Those were the moments that made a simple house feel like a loving home. Everything changed after my husband passed away. The biggest silence is not the quiet around you, but the quiet inside you. My children still visited, but each visit felt shorter than the last. They were busy with their lives. I told myself I understood, but understanding does not fill the empty chair at dinner. When my son got married, I hoped for new happiness. My daughter-in-law was polite at first. She asked about my health, cooked beside me, and smiled softly. I thought she would bring joy back into this house. But slowly, her smile faded. The conversations became shorter. She would sit with her phone, her eyes far away even when she was in the same room. I tried not to take it personally. But one afternoon, I heard them talking. My son said, "She has nowhere else to go." My daughter-in-law answered, "But this house feels small with her here." I held my breath, standing quietly behind the door. I did not want to hear more, but the words were already in my heart. After that, small misunderstandings grew roots. A misplaced cup, a quiet comment, a heavy sigh. Doors closed gently, but they felt loud to me. There were no angry fights, but the silence after every small disagreement felt like thunder. At night, I sat near the kitchen window and looked at other houses. Lights would glow brightly. Children would laugh. I missed that sound. I missed being needed. I wondered if maybe I was becoming a burden. Still, I hoped. I prayed. I held on to the belief that families sometimes lose their way, but love helps them return. I whispered to myself before sleeping, "One day, we will sit together again." Even though I felt forgotten, sometimes, I was not ready to stop being family. Love does not end because time becomes difficult. It waits, it hopes, it stays. If you are enjoying this emotional story, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more heart-touching narrations. Things grew different after that day. I woke up earlier every morning, hoping to find a little peace before everyone else stepped into the kitchen. I made tea quietly, careful not to disturb anyone. I wanted the house to feel light, not heavy because of me, but even in silence, I could feel the distance. My daughter-in-law started spending more time in her room. When she walked past me, she smiled politely, but it was a smile without warmth. My son tried to balance both sides, but his eyes were tired. He would pat my shoulder gently before leaving for work, as if words might make things worse. I understood his struggle, but that did not stop the small ache inside my heart. Sometimes, I tried to help in the kitchen. I would chop vegetables or wash dishes, but slowly, she began saying, "It's okay, I will do it," and gently took things out of my hands. I knew she meant to be respectful, but it made me feel unnecessary, like a chair no one sits on anymore. One evening, as I folded laundry, I heard a conversation from their room. My daughter-in-law spoke softly, "I just want our own space. I feel watched." My son replied quietly, "She is my mother." There was a long silence after that. It felt heavier than shouting. Words spoken softly can cut deeper than words screamed. After that night, things changed more. My meals were sometimes left on the counter instead of the dining table. Family conversations did not always include me. And when relatives visited, I noticed how my daughter-in-law's face tightened. Worried someone might ask why I looked so quiet. One Sunday afternoon, I tried to talk. I said gently, "If I do anything wrong, please tell me." She paused, then said, "No, everything is fine." But her eyes said something else. Doors of the heart closed silently. You do not always hear the lock turn. My own daughter visited once in a while, but she had her own family to care for. She hugged me tightly and said, "Be patient, Mama." I nodded, but patience sometimes feels like sitting on a chair made of thorns. I found comfort in small things, the hum of the ceiling fan, the sound of birds outside our window, the smell of morning tea. But even those moments were short. Some days, I felt invisible, like a shadow moving through the rooms. Still, I tried. Every night, I whispered a small prayer. "Give us harmony. Let there be softness." I believed families were like threads. Even if they tangle or not, With time and gentle hands, they can be undone. But part of me wondered how long I could wait. How long until patience turned into silence so deep that no one would notice me at all. Days passed, and slowly, the cracks inside our home grew wider. They were not loud cracks that people could see. They were quiet, hidden in small habits and gentle changes. I noticed them most during meals. We once sat together, sharing stories and passing dishes. But now, my son and daughter-in-law often ate in their room, saying they were tired. I ate alone at the dining table, listening only to the sound of my spoon touching the plate. I tried to make conversation whenever I could. Sometimes I asked, "How was your day?" My daughter-in-law would reply without looking up, "It was fine." My son would nod and smile weakly. I missed the way he used to talk. Back then, his voice was full of excitement. Now, it felt like he saved his words for someone else. One afternoon, I prepared a dish my son loved as a child. I worked slowly, wanting every flavor to feel like home. When I served it, he smiled softly, happy for a moment. But my daughter-in-law barely touched her plate. She whispered, "I'm not hungry," and left the table. I saw the disappointment in my son's eyes, but he did not say anything. Silence became a habit. Sometimes, I sat in the living room, pretending to read a book, just to be present. But when they entered the room, they often stopped talking. They exchanged quiet glances, and I felt like a visitor, not a mother. Even my footsteps became careful. I believed that if I moved too loudly, I might disturb someone. One evening, while I was folding clothes, my daughter-in-law approached me. Her voice was soft, almost respectful, but firm. "Auntie, maybe you could spend more time in your room," she said. "It would give us more space." I nodded slowly. There was no anger in her voice, but the meaning was sharp. My room became my world after that. I spent long hours staring at the window. I watched neighbors laugh with their grandchildren. Sometimes I imagined my husband sitting beside me. He would have known what to say. He always did. But now, all I had were memories, and a bed that felt too large. That my son noticed my quietness, but he looked caught in the middle. If he asked me something in front of his wife, she would go silent. If he sat beside me, her eyes filled with disappointment. He tried to balance both sides, but hearts are not scales. Love does not weigh evenly. Nights felt longer. Some tears fell quietly on my pillow, where no one could see. In those moments, I wondered if I was slowly disappearing, like a photograph fading in sunlight. Still, I whispered to myself, families heal, hearts soften. But whispers can feel weak when the house around you grows colder every day. If you are enjoying this emotional story, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more heart-touching narrations. One morning, the house felt unusually quiet. Even the sound of the ceiling fan seemed softer, as if it did not want to disturb anyone. I woke up early, like always, and went to the kitchen to make tea. As I placed the kettle on the stove, I heard footsteps behind me. It was my daughter. Her face looked tired, and she avoided my eyes. She cleared her throat and said, "Auntie, we need to talk." Those 4 words carry more weight than people realize. They can change a day, a heart, and sometimes an entire life. I nodded and waited. She spoke slowly at first. "We feel crowded," she said. "We need privacy." There was no anger in her voice, but no softness either. My son entered the kitchen then, rubbing his eyes. When he saw us, he froze. He knew the conversation he had been avoiding was finally happening. "I did not want to say it like this," he whispered. His voice cracked a little. "We have been thinking, maybe you could stay with your daughter for some time." My heart dropped to my feet, not because they suggested it, but because I realized they had discussed it without me many times. My daughter lived far away and already had a busy home. I knew staying there would not be easy. But in that moment, I also knew my presence here was becoming heavier for them. I felt a warm tear roll down my cheek, but I quickly wiped it away. Mothers learn to hide their pain. We protect our children, even when they are hurting us. I smiled gently and said, "If that makes you happy, I can manage." My voice sounded calm, but inside, everything shook. For a few seconds, the kitchen was silent. My son looked like he wanted to say something more, to take it back, but he did not. Silence can be agreement too. I went to my room, closed the door softly, and sat on the bed. My hands trembled slightly. I touched the pillow and remembered my husband's voice. "Home is where hearts sit together," he once said. But now, hearts were sitting apart, even under the same roof. Later that afternoon, while packing a small bag, I found old family photos. We were smiling in all of them. My fingers traced each face. I wondered how laughter can disappear so quietly. When I zipped the bag closed, I felt something shift inside me. It was not anger, it was acceptance. Sometimes love means stepping back, even when it hurts. Sometimes home is not a place, it is a feeling. And when that feeling fades, walls become just walls. That evening, I sat alone in the living room. No one said much. The distance between us felt deeper than ever. And for the first time, I wondered if leaving might actually heal us all. The next morning arrived with a strange heaviness in the air. I sat on the edge of my bed, listening to the quiet footsteps outside my door. It felt like the house was holding its breath. I folded the last of my clothes and placed them gently in my small suitcase. It was not much, just enough for a few days. Though I did not really know how long I would stay away. As I zipped the bag, I heard a soft knock. My son stepped inside, his eyes lowered. He tried to smile, but it faded quickly. "Ma, I hope you understand," he whispered. His voice was filled with guilt, the kind that sits deep in the bones. I nodded. "I do." The truth was more complicated. But sometimes we offer simple answers to protect the ones we love. He sat beside me and placed his hand on mine. For a moment, I saw the little boy who once held my hand tightly while crossing the street. But now, he let go to Isley. Downstairs, my daughter-in-law stood quietly beside the door. She did not look angry, just tired. Maybe she had her own reasons, her own fears. I tried not to judge her. Marriage brings new responsibilities. And homes can feel small when emotions stretch across every room. "I packed you some snacks," she said softly, holding a small bag. I accepted it with a nod. Kindness can sometimes feel heavier than cruelty. It reminds you of what is being lost. As I stepped outside, the air felt colder than usual. The road was empty, and a light breeze moved the leaves. My daughter arrived to pick me up. She hugged me tightly, and I felt a warmth I had missed. "Everything will be okay, Mama," she whispered. I wanted to believe her. During the drive, I watched familiar houses pass by. Each one held its own stories, while mine seemed to be changing chapters too quickly. I looked at my daughter. She smiled often, trying to distract me. But silence sat between us like an unwanted guest. When we reached her home, her children ran to greet me. Their laughter wrapped around my heart like a soft blanket. They did not ask why I had arrived with a suitcase. Children understand love, not complications. That night, as I lay on the small guest bed, I stared at the ceiling. I listened to distant laughter and footsteps from the hallway. For a moment, I felt safe. But then a quiet thought touched me. What if this was not temporary? I turned toward the window. The moonlight fell gently across the room, reminding me of my husband's words. "Family is not perfect," he once said, "but love chooses again, even after storms." I closed my eyes and whispered a hope. Maybe distance would soften hearts. Maybe time would open doors again. And maybe, just maybe, we would sit together at the same table one day. If you are enjoying this emotional story, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more heart-touching narrations. The first few days at my daughter's home felt gentle. She tried to keep me busy with small things, helping the children with homework, folding laundry, cutting vegetables. I could sense she was trying to distract me, to fill the empty spaces inside my heart. I appreciated her efforts more than she knew. But every night, when the house grew quiet, my thoughts returned to the place I once called home. I wondered if my son missed me. I wondered if my daughter-in-law felt lighter without my footsteps in the hallway. Sometimes I held the pillow tightly, wishing I could silence my worries. But thoughts are stubborn when hearts are tired. A week later, my daughter sat beside me on the sofa. "Mama," she said softly, "you can stay here as long as you want." Her voice was kind, but I could see her concern. She had a family of her own. I did not want to be a burden twice. I smiled gently. "I will not stay forever," I replied. "Sometimes, distance teaches the heart to see clearly." She nodded. Even if she did not fully understand, days turned into weeks. I settled into a quiet routine. I helped cook dinners, walked the children to school, and watered the small plants near the window. My daughter-in-law called once during that time. She asked how I was, but the conversation felt quick and thin, like a thread ready to break. My son called occasionally too, but his voice sounded guilty. He would say, "We are fine here," but never once said, "Come home." One evening, my granddaughter asked Nani, "Why do you look sad sometimes?" Children notice more than adults. I smiled and replied, "Sometimes hearts miss places more than people can see." Another month passed. I did not pack my bags. I waited. Every day, I hoped for a message, a knock, a voice saying, "We miss you. Please come home." It never came. Instead, something else happened. I began to discover peace in unexpected places. When I helped my granddaughter braid her hair, I felt needed again. When my grandson laughed at my stories, I felt joy. Slowly, the cracks inside me began to fill with new warmth. But there were nights when I sat by the window, staring at the stars, wondering if my son ever sat quietly and thought of me too. Maybe hearts need space to remember what silence took away. My daughter noticed my loneliness one night and said, "Maybe this break is healing all of you. Mama, sometimes love forgets itself when people live too close." Her words stayed with me. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. Maybe she was right. Maybe stepping away was not the end. Maybe it was the beginning of change, the kind that hurts first but heals later. And somewhere inside me, a small hope continued to whisper, "They will choose you again." 3 months passed quietly. Life at my daughter's home became soft and predictable. The children grew used to seeing me every morning, and I found comfort in their small routines. Still, late at night, when everyone else slept, I would sit on the balcony and whisper to the stars. I asked them if my son ever looked up at the same night sky and thought of me too. One afternoon, as I was helping my granddaughter with her school project, my phone rang. It was my son. His voice sounded different, tired, almost broken. "Ma," he said, "how are you?" I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the question sit in the air. "I'm fine," I answered softly. "And you?" He paused before replying. "The house feels empty." Those words felt like a fragile bridge forming between us again. I wanted to ask more, but I kept my voice steady. "Silence can be loud," I said gently. He did not respond, but I heard the quiet shake of his breath. A week later, my daughter-in-law called. Her voice was softer than I remembered. She asked how I was sleeping, if I was eating well, and how the children were doing. For the first time, I heard something real. Before hanging up, she whispered, "We miss you." Simple words, but they touched a part of me I thought had gone numb. My daughter watched me closely after that call. She smiled softly and said, "See, distance changes things." I nodded, but I did not want to hope too quickly. Hope is fragile. It can break if held too tightly. Over the next few days, the calls became more frequent. My son shared small details: how the kitchen felt quiet, how dinner conversations were short, how his heart felt heavier than ever. Then, one evening he confessed, "I never realized how much you held our home together." His voice cracked. I felt tears roll quietly down my cheeks. Sometimes love is understood only in absence. One Sunday morning, I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, my son and daughter-in-law stood there. She looked nervous, holding a small bouquet of flowers. He looked tired, but hopeful. "Ma," he whispered, "can you come home?" For a moment, I could not speak. My heart beat fast, as if trying to remind my body it was still alive. My daughter-in-law stepped forward and held my hands. "I am sorry," she said. Her voice trembled. "We should have understood your love, not your presence." Tears filled her eyes, and I gently wiped them away. Forgiveness is easier when regret is real. My daughter hugged all three of us, whispering, "This is how families learn." And she was right. Sometimes healing does not happen in one conversation. It happens slowly, in the quiet spaces between broken moments. That afternoon, I packed my small bag again, but this time, my heart felt lighter. If you are enjoying this emotional story, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more heart-touching narrations. Going back home felt like stepping into a familiar dream. The door creaked the same way, and the rug in the hallway still curled at the edge. But something had changed. The air felt warm again, not heavy. My son carried my bag quietly and placed it on my old bed. My daughter-in-law brought me a cup of tea, her hands slightly shaking. For the first time in a long while, her eyes met mine with honesty. We sat together in the living room. No one spoke for a few seconds. Then my son broke the silence. "Ma, we should have listened to your silence." His voice was gentle, full of regret. My daughter-in-law added softly, "We forgot everything you have done for this family." She looked at her hands, afraid they might hide the truth. I smiled. "Hearts get tired too," I replied. "Sometimes they need space to breathe." There was no anger inside me, only a tired kind of wisdom. They listened quietly, the way children listen when they know the story matters. Over the next few days, the house began to change. My daughter-in-law asked for help in the kitchen again. We cooked side by side, sharing small stories. She asked for my old recipes, the ones my husband loved. My son sat at the dining table every evening, talking about his day like he used to when he was young. Slowly, the house filled with laughter instead of silence. One evening, rain tapped softly against the windows. We sat together with warm soup, a simple meal. But simple meals taste rich when served with love. My daughter-in-law looked at me and said, "Thank you for forgiving us." I reached across the table and held her hand. "Families are not perfect," I whispered. "We learn as we go." Later, she showed me a room she had cleaned and prepared for me. Fresh sheets, a small vase of flowers, and a warm blanket folded neatly. "We want you to feel like you belong," she said. My heart tightened, not with pain, but with gratitude. The grandchildren visited soon after. They ran around the house, filling every corner with joy, and when they hugged their parents, I saw how much this home needed laughter from all generations. It was proof that families are strongest when everyone has a place. That night, as I lay in my bed, I listened to the gentle rain outside. I closed my eyes and felt peace bloom inside me slowly, quietly, like a flower opening after a long winter. I whispered to the darkness, "After all the anger, we finally chose each other again." In life, we all make mistakes. We hurt the people we love the most without meaning to. But the true strength of a family is not in avoiding storms, it's in choosing to sit together when the rain falls. Hardest dot, and sometimes, stepping away is the only way to step back in with a fuller heart. If you enjoyed this emotional story, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more heart-touching narrations.